Okay, you ready? Let's do it. You're listening to Chats from a Chair with me, Nick Dempsey, coming to you from my wheelchair. I speak with people who have a great story to tell, portraying the human potential, often in the face of adversity. Check out the Instagram page at chatsfromachair_podcast and let me know who you think I should have on and have a chat with. Also, don't forget to hit follow on whatever platform you're listening to this. But for now, sit back and enjoy this episode. Coming up in this episode, I'm chatting with Jim and Genny from Making Strides. They are the directors there at Making Strides, a centre for rehabilitation for people with neurological conditions. So, chatting with them about the fairly unique community that's been built there. We'll also touch on some of the more challenging and rewarding moments they've had in the gym. Their excitement about being part of the upcoming trial to find a cure for spinal cord injury. And then also, I'll be asking them about a question I get fairly often about what they actually do in there with our bodies and moving them around and what a typical session is really like. So stay tuned for all of that and more. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Chats from a Chair. Today I have Jim and Genny from Making Strides with me. Guys, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
I know you guys have been pumped to get this done. Haven't been nervous or overthinking it at all.
Oh, such amateurs.
Yeah.
Rescheduled 5 times.
That's right, we got there. Just building the suspense is what it is.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get into it. Making Strides, how would you explain it? What is it? Because it's very unique.
Oh, wow.
It's a very loaded question. It can go a lot of ways.
Yeah, it probably depends who you ask. They answered a few different ways. We like to think that Making Strides is, I guess, first and foremost, a center of rehabilitation for those with neurological injuries or disorders. And on top of that, it's also a lot of people's comfort, a sense of community. It's part of people's daily grind. Some people not as often as that, but hopefully a place where people can get stronger but also find purpose, and sometimes that's what leads them to what they do next, whether it be sporting and or just realizing that you can get back to driving or doing all of those other bits. So a big part is the community alongside the actual rehab.
Yeah, it is. It's many facets to it as well. Like you said, to start with, it is a neuro centre for rehabilitation. We'll definitely get a lot to the community and that sort of things that it is. But what clientele do you work with? Because obviously a lot is spinal cord injuries, but what are some other ones you get in there?
We predominantly employ exercise physiologists and physiotherapists, which means they can work across a bunch of different scopes within the allied health world. But right back at the start, when Genny came out from America, we chose to keep the scope just neurological disorders and conditions. So I suppose that's given us nearly 12 years of internal development and clinical progression to get where we are now. But so yeah, we do get a lot of inquiries, I suppose you'd say, with people saying they'd heard about us and they've just come back from an ACL reco and they want us to do the rehab, and we choose to say no to that and keep our defined scope. There's more now, but certainly when we started there wasn't many around. So it just staying in our little niche, tiny little bubble is cool, because you're just every single day you're continually like trying to do things differently, and new equipment and new research might come out, or just getting a better understanding of a condition, and that's I think where the magic lies.
Specialise in that area
Yeah, so we have SCI, CP, MS, FND, stroke, TBI, ABI. Basically anybody has struggled with anything that might cause any type of paralysis or altered motor or sensory function based on a neurological condition.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. No, would majority be spinal cord injury, you'd say, in there?
That's definitely takes up majority, but I will say at Ormo, I feel like that's numbers shifting.
Oh, really?
I think that's just demographic space.
We're getting taken over, are we?
Early days, we'd market it as a spinal cord injury rehab clinic, but we sort of dropped that moniker a little while ago, and now it was early days were pushing 80% or more, but now it's probably down just over half.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, broadens a little bit. I was going to say keeps it interesting, but it's probably spinal cord injury is that much different anyway. It's not like it's
Totally.
Yeah,
same
yeah.
person over and over. But
Yeah, it's not that mundane.
yeah, yeah, definitely not. So what are your backgrounds to get into this line of work? What led you to where you are now at Making Strides?
This probably goes back to San Diego, and that's where I went for uni. So at this point, I had graduated, and I had a few different jobs at that point, all within the health and fitness sector, training, senior fitness, and more specifically, I was working in an outpatient physio clinic. And I really liked what I was doing there, but at the same time, I just felt like there was something missing and wanted something a little more fulfilling. And at that point, I was also hungry for that time when you're just saying, I need to fast track and find a career. So I turned to the trustiest resource I knew, which was Craigslist. And I saw this listing, and it said I believe it was a neuro specialist. And at that point, I kind of laughed at myself, thinking my only neuro specialty was working in the disability lab. And I've worked with one guy with a spinal cord injury named Jose, who I feel very bad for if he's still hoping that I provide that same service, which is very subpar. And anyway, I went for this interview at this facility, and luckily they had me positioned right in front of what felt like the most magical setup. And it was this boy in a full cap and gown practicing to walk across stage, and he was shaking nonstop. His spasticity was just unruly taken over. And at that point, I had no idea what came with a C5 injury. And his trainer was simulating handing him his diploma and preparing for a magical day.
Wow.
When you were just waiting there, you saw...
I was just waiting, and I just saw this guy and just said, whatever you're doing, can I be a part of it?
Yeah,
yeah, that's awesome.
Because I just saw the look on everybody's faces around, where I was like, everybody's a part of this. And he was somebody, unfortunately, who has suffered an injury when he was only a few months old. He was actually in a car accident. And from there, he's continued training and just was really able to see that even though he had a debilitating condition, that there was so much more for him in his future. And I have followed him to this day. But yeah, so I ended up luckily getting the job, not just wanting the job. And I worked there part-time and the physio clinic. And then from there, I felt like the world just opened up, as far as we had so many visiting clientele from all over the world, from India, Australia specifically, and all over Europe. And so I felt like I was always almost on this holiday myself, visiting new clients. And one girl in particular asked if I would go to Australia with her for 3 months. And I thought working holiday sounded fantastic.
Yeah.
And
long working holiday now.
yeah, so that was 12 and a half years ago.
Yeah.
But,
she's still got a tracking bracelet.
yeah, so, if you do the math, I was 29 then. But I came over to Brisbane, moved to Lutwyche, and started just working with so many of the clients that I had already met at Project Walk, and grew that relationship, and they were all within Brisbane and Gold Coast. And I feel like it's one of those things where you just say right place, right time. And then along the way, I had a friend of mine who I was actually doing a running group with, and she said, hey, come over for dinner. And that was in Brisbane. And she said, I'm inviting 2 of my good friends over. And one of them just happened to be Jim, and that's how I met him. But there's been, lucky or unlucky. Along the way, there's obviously been a lot more people who have come and gone, and it's been some really great relationships that have led us to where we're at now.
When you met this one, what do you contribbe?
Not much.
Good question.
I tell everyone I'm the janitor, and it's still pretty true today. I clean the toilets.
It passes. Stuff. Yep.
Yeah.
No, how did you come to be involved?
I love sport and PE and like the human body right through school, and that was certainly my favourite subject in year 12, which helped me. And my dad had a pretty terrible accident, a workplace accident when I was young. Had Parkinson's right through my teenage years, and ended up passing away when I was last year at uni, which sort of led me down that path of wanting to understand it more. Back then, the treatment for Parkinson's and more so the medication was terrible. It was really hard to watch when you're a young teenager, and trying to grow up yourself, but watching the man you love sort of deteriorate in front of you. And I sort of recognised that wasn't being done right, and the health system was not really, serving him right and everything. So I had that as one of my motives, but just love sport. I was never a great athlete, but was kind of good at a few things. So I thought I'd just go into a sporting role, and loved uni, and then sort of went into strength and conditioning and high performance stuff straight out of uni, and told myself as an early 20-year-old that's all I ever wanted to do. Jagged some amazing jobs and started with a great company in Brizzy called Acceleration, who still good friends with Stewie to this day. But the more, and I kept telling myself, I've worked with this group or this population, or, amateurs. As soon as I get to the pros, I'll love this more. And I was lucky enough to jag some teams like that and worked all around the world and everything. But it just wasn't completely filling my cup, sort of thing, and I wasn't really serving others and sort of helping them, other than a job or win a premiership, which are big things, but it's different to what we do with you on the weekly, for example. So gave 6 months notice in that role with no idea where I was going to end up, and that's where fortune had it. And Kelly, our mutual friend, Jenny, I think we went over for dinner, me and Bo, wasn't it? And then, the rest is history.
You came to the dance studio that we were renting.
That's what I was going to say that before. So home visits and renting out little studios and all sorts of stuff in Brizzy. I still remember the first session and doing some, breathing techniques and high performance sort of stuff interlaid with what the magic that Jenny was doing, obviously. And every time I tell the story, like again right now, it gives me goosebumps about it. And I called Amy, my wife, fiance back then, and said, look, I've found what I want to do forever, hey. And yes, Making Strides has grown a lot now, and me and Jenny have minimal role on the floor or even helping out on the floor or assisting, and we're traditionally taken up with more admin stuff now, but it's the floor stuff that still makes me really, really passionate and really excited. Certainly not the computer stuff.
Yeah, I think anyone that goes in there and knows you guys can see how passionate you are about it. And I guess we'll get into a little bit more as well about the people in there, that it's the people that really care about helping that sort of make the place and make it. They're the ones that are good at that job. Because from those stories, especially with you both having those personal experiences of wanting to make a difference to either your dad or like someone you wouldn't even have just met that guy and just saw how much of a difference people were making, that's sort of what makes a good worker in that space. That it wasn't like you guys saw, I know how we can make some money. There's people with disabilities that will pay us to like move them around, kind of thing. It's coming from a very different place, and that definitely comes across at Stride. So
you've got to want to be there. Like it's not a job that is easy, emotionally or physically, and there's other jobs that definitely pay more and be easier for that cash as well. But we're lucky enough to get 50 plus students a year, and we have had some amazing resumes come over our desk as well. So you find the ones that really want to help, really want to serve others, and can feel comfortable in the crazy purple madhouse that we call it. Yeah. Some people don't gel with it, but we've got very lucky with the ones that have gelled with it, and they are now what we call Making Strides. It's not Jenny and I anymore.
You mentioned as well that it is obviously it's a fairly physically demanding job, but the people that work there are fit. But how do you balance that mental toll that it does take on you? Because like you said, I imagine it could be mentally draining sometimes, dealing with people that are often at their worst at times or in a negative headspace themselves due to an injury or whatever it might be.
Yeah, that is a big part of it, of trying to figure out how to, in essence, leave work at work. But then I think the reality of it, and just like yourself, you can't leave your spinal cord injury at the door as much as you try. And I'm sure you've wished it many times upon you that you could wake up and just have a couple-hour break. So I think it all comes with the nature of the role, as you can figure out how to do what you need to do for you. Everybody, I feel like it's a buzzword now to say self-care. Yeah. So whatever you find, that I don't think self-care only needs to be going to yoga. Sometimes it's just having a quiet drive. Yeah. But I think it's for everybody, and a big part of what we do isn't just saying that everybody needs first aid and CPR training, but we also, within our team, weekly team meetings, sometimes we do a bit of work on whether it be just everybody starting in a quiet space, a little bit of meditation, or just looking at how you can present for somebody else when you're not feeling you're 100% yourself, and understanding that you also can't be 100% of the time in every facet of your life, and learning that's okay. We've done a lot with being the good enough clinician, which of course we all want to be the best.
Yep.
But to be the best, you also need to know that you're also human.
Yeah. I think it's any clientele that's, whether it's someone that has suffered a spinal cord injury or, is terminal cancer or whatever it might be, or someone that's just won the lottery, everyone's going to have bad days and bad times. So definitely. I think that's very important to, like you said, be able to recognize that and deal with it when it's happening. Make the most of your good days, and when you're having them, help out someone that's having a bad day.
Yeah.
You get pretty close with the people that's in front of you, like, staff, clients. We call it the purple family. Like that's everyone, carers, loved ones, obviously, those living with a neurological condition, or staff, students. You get very close with them, and as Jenny said, you got to ride the ups and downs. And we talk about being an accidental counsellor. Like, part of it is, like, traditionally people will really bear all with you once they trust you, and we encourage everyone to not shy away from those conversations. But that conversation and that, like, a cumulative emotional load brings its own sort of, weight on you. So, like, and for Jenny and I in our role, like, the buck stops with us. So there's days when we're getting hammered. We have some answering to do because our system's failed someone, or, might be scheduling, administration, whatever. Someone might have had an adverse event at clinic, and that's our responsibility. So that weighs on us as well. But for me, I think just knowing that the net positive is for the greater and for the better, that's how I can go home and sleep at night going, might have got screamed at today, NUS might be cutting back more, this person might have, had a skin breakdown, whatever. It's not stuff you want, but it's stuff you got to deal with. But knowing that the purple family's good and they look after each other, and knowing that what we do for others is for the better, then that's how I personally deal with it.
And stacking the little wins, knowing they're building up something big. When one's taken away, you still got more wins coming. And
well said.
Yeah. We touched on a little bit the community there, that it is, like I said, Purple Family, so much more than just a gym you come in and train.
Yeah.
Was that something that was planned and you wanted to make it a community, or that just happened organically?
I'd say both. I think for everything, as we kind of went over earlier, there probably wasn't a well-oiled business plan, as much as I would like to say everything has been intentional. So, with that, I could say you want to connect yourself with the place that you want to be. So if it's not a place that you want to be because you don't feel not only inspired on a professional level, but also on a personal level, then you're probably not going to put all your eggs in that basket. So I think it's something that we absolutely strive to do, but what we didn't realize is as more people came on board, we absorbed everything that they were, and now it's just incredible to see, people like yourself that we truly do feel are so close and are like family, and then it's all just the chosen purple family. So having, 20 staff across 2 facilities, which has been able to see hundreds of clients and all of the energy that they bring, it's just like, it's kind of that big extended family just keeps growing. And so, it's
like a ripple effect.
That's what I do feel like we're just riding all the waves.
Yeah.
But I think the cool part about the Purple Family now is that it sort of just grows itself. It's not us saying, oh, hey, Nick, if, when you were newer to your injury, for example, go and talk to this guy, and trying to actively play Cupid in the peer support role, or even with staff, when you have new staff come in. Now it just happens. Like last night, it was cool this morning in the office with Origin last night. That much banter, I copped it hard and, go the Blues, but didn't go very well last night. But second to that, a lot of the crew had caught up and had dinner and watched the game. I didn't know what was happening, and I love that they do it though. Like I'm not butthurt. I'm actually stoked that they do it, and they just have their own little groups now, and it just grows and grows. Like that is a sign of a cool community, if you ask me. And it's not us pushing it anymore. It's people are choosing to, opt in and help each other.
Yeah. And how does it make you guys feel when you, like, say you have functions and whatnot, the birthday parties, when so many people turn up and you see those things where someone new comes to the gym and they're already chatting to someone they don't know, and you see the community growing and everyone sort of, because especially with disabilities or neurological conditions, maintaining relationships with friends or family or partners, whatever it might be, obviously a lot of them do break down and it's harder to maintain. So when you see someone that might have struggled a little bit, then, forming new friendships there, how does that make you guys feel?
Incredible. It's amazing just to see that, because we find, as you could probably attest, as you're saying, sometimes it's maybe relationships that break down, or just you're trying to, quite literally, the relationship that breaks down the most is the one with yourself. And so you're stuck looking for purpose. So it just feels very cool for us to be able to sit back and see that, Harriet is talking to Renee, and then this person's talking to somebody else, and then just see that they're finding, even if they might feel like they don't connect to their current friends, which hopefully they will at a certain time, that they're able to find new friends and friends that they feel like actually see them and understand. So it's great, because it doesn't matter how good you are at trying to help somebody regain dorsiflexion. A lot of times somebody's looking for somebody to understand what they're actually feeling inside.
And the purple family sometimes lets them get past that social encounters and drop that view where they think when they go out in public now in a wheelchair, people look at them differently, and like, just because we do that many social events or encourage it, that might be the catalyst for them doing their first one, and then they're like, oh yeah, I can do this.
Gives them that first exposure and
like
gain confidence.
Ryan going, his first trip was down to Sargood, and now he's just jet setting everywhere. Like, it's kind of like that as an example. Like, it's giving that support and that comfort they need to push themselves a little bit and get back out in the real world.
Yeah. Well, I moved up here from Albury. And I got great mates that were still supporting me, but then obviously moving up here, sort of going somewhere. I knew a couple people up here, but essentially Strides was my main port of call at the start, and then becoming friends with people that work there and other people there, like other clients, and just started hanging out outside of there. And
you're the most eligible guy on the Gold Coast, right?
Apparently.
The Gold Coast. What haven't you done?
I know, it used to be cool. But it is such a big thing for people to just a sense of community. And I was talking to someone the other day about it, saying that even just the little things, when it's like and I guess when you're surrounded by people with other people with disabilities, it's like an unspoken understanding of what you all have to go through day to day, and you don't have to sort of put on a facade of even little things like, say, if you need your bag emptied, you've got to usually in public sneak around a corner, or if you want to be at a cafe and you've got to help to eat and things like that, where at Strides, in that community where everyone's going through the same thing, you don't have to try to hide that or be ashamed of it at all.
You'll commonly see other carers helping other people. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, I can see, Nick, that your bag needs it. Let's just, like, or I'll go and do it for you, whatever. Like, I can see that you need some food cut up. Like, everyone sort of just chips in to make it, like, normalise it a bit more.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes a massive difference.
Tonight is Thursday, which means a few of the staff and then some of the clients go to trivia every Thursday.
Yeah.
And it's been really, really special. I mean, even my husband goes, and it's just so nice because he doesn't have a lot of friends on the coast. And then we've had other of our staff who have actually moved here who've said they don't have a lot of friends here. So it's not just the clients that come together. A big part of it, I think some people think it's great what you're doing for your clients, but it's really not. It's humans. Like, it's helping us as much as it's helping anybody else. So it's just people finding like-minded groups.
Yeah, no, especially somewhere like the Gold Coast, where barely ever, if I meet someone that's actually grown up here,
you don't.
It's weird. Everyone moves here.
I'm stoked and very proud of our clinical practices, and I'm not at all trying to downplay that, but this stuff we're talking about now is what I get the most satisfaction out of. And that, a big community-minded, open-minded group that are just helping each other and want to hang out with each other and all wanting the best for each other, celebrating each other's wins. Like, that's the part that I'm extremely proud to be part of.
Yeah, no, well, it is a great community. How, working in there, since you guys have been working with this clientele, how has it changed the way you live your lives? Because I know, Jim, you try to injure yourself weekly still. It's still engage in some, I'd say, risk-taking behaviour.
Don't. I have no idea what you were doing yesterday, but just don't.
I should say, instead of saying how has it changed, has it changed?
Has it motivated you?
Has it changed at all?
I wouldn't say it's lowered my injury frequency, and I'm not saying that's a good thing, but it's sort of given me a different appreciation. I'll start by saying it's definitely made me feel more grateful for what I have. Yeah. Like, having it, like, you kind of win the lottery when you get born in Australia, get a good education, you're able-bodied, healthy, and all that sort of stuff. So I think a lot of us take that for granted sometimes. But then if you have an injury like you've had, like a lot of that goes. And then not only the injury, but then access to education might change, or access to employment, access to social groups. So it's certainly, I keep checking myself and being very grateful for what I have and what a lot of other people would consider the norm. Like what the norm is actually amazing or is all everyone ever wants if they have a neurological condition. So that certainly, and yes, with motorbike racing in particular, I now have the gold standard of all your protective equipment, and don't do desert racing as much anymore because of the speeds involved. But I've got a race coming up in 2 weeks for the enduro, which is not as fast, and I think it's more of a calculated risk now.
Yeah.
I am getting older. I don't bounce. I do brake. I'm recognising all that, and second to that, I feel, if I do stupid stuff and then I got to call Jenny and go, hey, stuffed up again.
Yeah.
And then my wife, hey, stuffed up. Like that's not something I want to keep doing forever. So I think my overall point is it's making me stop and check myself and go, hey, dude, life's pretty good. Just stop and smell the roses.
Yeah. Don't need to wrap yourself in bubble wrap and not leave the house in case you get hurt. But yeah, there's, like you said, even something as small as getting more protective equipment, just having that slight knowing that stuff can go wrong. But what about you, Jen?
I don't really I don't have a lot of risky hobbies. I don't have a lot of hobbies, so please find me some.
So you could be a podcast host.
No, definitely not. I'm proving that wrong right now. No, not really. I mean, this is something I've thought about for a while, as far as, and more so, I think just now having kids, for them more than I think just for myself. So as far as, never say never, but I don't think I will be encouraging my kids to get into dirt bikes or that type of stuff. And that's just because it's also not something that I feel comfortable doing. So wouldn't feel comfortable with that skill set to be able to teach somebody else. So I think about it more within the parental role than I do for myself, just based on, I usually have 2 feet pretty planted with the ground currently, but as we know, it's not just risk taking. So many times it's car accidents, or for you being, an elite water polo player and then just one day diving in a pool or jumping in and not giving any thought to that. So
not much at all.
Yeah, I think there's only so much you can do, but I also think part of living the life of with somebody with a spinal cord injury is you realize that you miss spontaneity. So if you're going to go ahead and shield yourself and remove all of that, then I don't want to remove myself from living just for the fear of something that could or might not ever happen.
Yeah, exactly. You can't live that way. It's not a life. There's no point. So but I mean, you guys obviously know this, and you touched on it, Jim, that like just the appreciating what you do have, and winning the lottery, just being born here. And I think obviously it's something I massively took for granted. That's, I couldn't care less if I never play a game of footy or water polo, whatever it might be. It's just like the little things you miss, and that. So I think that's the things that people, and like I said, I did it as well, take for granted, that listening to this can get someone through just to appreciate what they do have and make the most of it while you do, and like as you said, stop and smell the roses along the way. It make a massive difference to maybe the way people just interpret their day to day and live their lives. So hopefully people can get that from this.
What do you miss the most?
It's hard to say the most, but I mean, even like something little is just being able to wake up and roll out of bed and just do like a big stretch you do in the morning.
Yeah.
Like how good that feels.
Yeah.
Something like that, or just like the obvious ones like hugging your family members, like mum, and just being able to interact that sort of way with. And even now I've got nieces and nephews, just being able to interact with them in a different way as well.
Yeah.
I mean, like they're awesome. My nephew just straight up on my lap every time he sees me and stuff like that, which is sick. But it's just, like I said, I mean, my life was sport and being active, going to the gym before that. And I don't care if I never do that again. But it's just those little things of having the freedom to do things when you want, independence, spontaneity, as you said. And those are the kind of things that really matter. So hopefully people can appreciate those things while they can do them.
Definitely.
Yeah. In that last video we did for the gala, for the Pericross Gala, we were asking everybody what would they do if they had 24 hours free of paralysis.
Yeah.
And it just hit all of us that everybody, what they were looking forward to was the most mundane day.
Yeah.
It was like everybody was saying, get up, walk my dog, make myself breakfast. go to the bathroom without needing any assistance or anybody being there. You know, it was like such little things. Going to the beach, kicking the ball, you know, with the sun. And it was everybody that said things. There was very few people that we asked that said anything like, even to the degree of running a marathon or going to a nightclub or traveling or doing anything that was other than just, I just want to get out of bed and appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, that's, obviously that's the things that really matter. So that's what, hopefully people can recognize that and make the most of it and appreciate it while they have it.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Has it changed the way you guys value relationships with other people, either loved ones or, you're both parents now as well, in seeing so many relationships with people in this space break down, or friendships and things? Do you value relationships with people different, and maybe select the people you spend time with a little bit more carefully based on different values now?
I think it challenges you to value realness more. And like the example I give to people that are fresh into the chair is like, if you go out and someone, like, because people do get worried about them looking at them or, judging them. I was like, mate, if that person judges you or looks at you any different because you're in a chair, wipe that person off your list.
Yeah.
Like so they're not a real person. They have, values that I don't align with. And so to answer your question, I if people don't value and normalize this sort of stuff, then I'm cool, man. Like, you live in your little bubble over there. I'm going to do me. Like, don't give any opinion on what I'm doing. I'm at least not going to look at it, sort of thing, or consider it. So just finding those really good, caring people that have a lower filter and just, care about others. That's certainly what I, value the most. Trying to impart that on my daughters, and that's real life. It's not plastic Gold Coast stuff and, what car do you drive or what school did you go to, or none of that shit matters. And if it does matter to someone, then I don't really want to align with that person. No offense to the viewers that might, but it's just like, that's not real to me. And like helping you become the man you are now, that's mad. And being a small, tiny part of that, and being part of a community where we all foster that, that's the part that I have come to really know in myself that I like the most. And as a parent, that's what I hope my kids grow up with as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well said. Anything to add?
Yeah, not really. I don't think I've so much changed in that aspect based on work at Strides. I'd just say it's tough to see so many people who do come in, whether they're freshly injured or not, and to see, which I can only imagine is just part of the journey, but how many times they feel so guilty for being in the position that they're in, which is not a position anybody wants to be in. So for whatever reason, they had this injury, and then all of a sudden they feel so guilty that they have to put their partner and their friends and their family and everybody through it, when it's not like you're not putting them through it. You're letting them be a part of your life.
Yeah, that's definitely a tricky one as well, because you do feel a level of guilt when because you do change the lives of people around you, and obviously, because I always say, if it was, say, my brother, like, I wouldn't care helping him, but it's easier to say that than actually put yourself in that position and think
when you're the one doing it.
So,
and even Nick, if it's like if it's an act that was, you were probably the at fault, if you want to say that, or someone else did it, it still could have happened anyway, man. Like, it's like people literally sneeze and get a spinal cord injury. People might get on a push bike and they get blindsided by a car that wasn't looking for them, or you could jump in a pool. But that doesn't change. Like, for the core real people around you, that doesn't change it to them. And it's easy for us to say that you're the one living with it, but that's what we're finding is the real people around you don't care.
Yeah, it would be, even for myself, like, I've got great support around me, and I know there are lots of people that love me, so at times it is difficult, but I know that they do. But for some people that might not have that same support, it would be really difficult. So hopefully they do find some support somewhere, or Strides, that sense of community is so important.
I think sometimes their barrier to it might be the reason why they're not finding it as well. And that's a very harsh thing to say, but it's like, again, there is people out there that don't care. They generally want to help you. They generally want the best for you. And if you just know that you're going to find that person eventually, then it might help you find that person quicker.
When I had Tony on the podcast, a fellow spinal cord injury, he was saying that, he found it harder for him to be around other people more than for other people to be around him. He was sort of in his own head about it more and didn't want to hang out with people. So then that broke down relationships more than actually the people around him cared about helping him or wanting to be with him. He just sort of...
Because he was insecure about the way that he looked or was perceived?
Yeah, exactly. So, and then so he drew back, and then obviously when he does that, relationships distance, and which I can fully understand. That I've always had the approach a little bit of just a little bit of faking it till you make it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing of just, even if you don't want to be somewhere or be around people, just act as if you do, and if it turns to shit, go home. If it doesn't, then people are sweet. You'll be like, oh, glad I came. I'm glad I did it. But yeah, you definitely don't always want to do it. But sometimes you just force yourself to do it, and it'll work out.
Agree, because that social anxiety, the longer that you withdraw, just the bigger that beast is.
It's just harder.
And I would hate to
out.
think of Tony not going out, because we love Tony.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Token American.
he is. Yeah, he'd done another one with you. What about back in strides? I'm going to go negative for a second, and we'll get to positive.
Yeah, we hate strides.
Yeah.
Thank God we got there.
Yeah, finally.
Glad you said it.
Well, a negative experience in strides that both of you have been a part of.
Well, there's been a lot of challenging moments.
Yeah.
I'll just go, and I guess I could even umbrella term a few. We've had to call 000 quite a few times. So those moments can be from... We've had lots of seizures, and some of them, not that any seizure isn't as scary as the other, but we've had some seizures that have lasted for quite some time, and continuous seizing. Very scary, hard thing to be a part of. We've also had fractures that have happened at strides. I mean, if you think about 12 years of being open, there are going to be injuries. It is inevitable. We do everything we can to prevent them, but there's no worse feeling you feel than knowing that you were a part of something that inflicted pain on somebody else. We have seen those not only with brain injuries, but it has happened in this situation where a client has gotten aggressive, and we even had one time where a client was throwing punches at directed at staff members. We've had people yelling. We've had aggressive clients, and then of course we've dealt with a lot of emotional moments where people just really come, I guess, unraveled, or have those times where it's they're not the aha moments that you want to celebrate, but it's also the lows that really need comforting. So yeah, none of those are easy.
No.
And especially if you have a couple in a day, it's a heavy day.
Yeah, it's an emotional toll, as we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
I think part of being in the neurological space, some neurological conditions are degenerative as well. And as much as we try, for some of them is maintenance is a goal, but we've had to say goodbye to a lot of people, and had a couple of funerals last year, for example, and
bad year.
That's hard. A few that one of them, we knew this lady for 10 plus years, and go to her house and all sorts of stuff. So that's super hard. And then on the daily, as Jenny mentioned, I'd like to think our clinical practices and training is cutting edge, and we take calculated risks to get potential rewards. So we might say, look, Nick, I want to do this setup for why. This is your goal. This is why I think it's justified, and based off previous training, I'm going to modify it in this way. Sometimes you get it wrong, and it's an educated thing. You have a discussion in advance, and I think as therapists, we all blame ourselves a lot more than the person in the moment even did. But yeah, causing harm, if it does happen, that's easily the worst day. And the person's like, dude, relax. I wanted to do it. I told you to do it, but you still feel like it's on you and everything. And also neurological conditions, it's not like working with athletes or able-bodied population where it's somewhat linear and easy to predict into the future. You might wake up tomorrow and you might have a pressure sore, or your spasticity might be really wild and you can't work it out, or bladder infection, whatever it is. So you've lived a really healthy life. You've got good sleep, good diet, great care around you, ticked every box, and life still throws you lemons. And that might last for 12 months. Yeah. So that's hard to live with that. You've battled some pretty big old doozies yourself, and pressure injuries, and we're communicating with you on the sidelines going, oh man, I could see how much that sort of knocked you back or is hard to deal with. So we feel that too, man.
Or you famously say that you're not a strides client unless you shit your pants.
That's
it's not your best day, but
we do that to try and normalize it because it happens a lot. That's part of this population, and so we have protocols that we do when it does happen. But going back to that social anxiety, when someone does it for the first time, it's their worst day.
Absolutely.
So I say that to go, hey, one of the club, man.
One of us.
Jim does it daily, so it's
fine. I was going to say, he normalizes
one of us.
way too much. We're done with that.
But yeah, just you want to, like, every day is a great day. Everyone's making, incremental gains, and it's only net positive. But it's not this population, unfortunately. So you just got to. It's one of those things where, like, you got to drive home that afternoon and go, look, the greater good has still been served, and tomorrow will be better. We'll learn from this, and don't have that as a reason to not open tomorrow.
Yeah.
How long did you spend on bed rest?
Oh, best part of 12 months, probably.
And how did you cope with that?
A lot of movies.
But I mean, how did you stay sane?
I actually don't know. I think. Did I?
But you also had setbacks, right? Like there was out and back, and
there was. It was just. It's a Dempsey thing. None of us have any arse, so it's just my hammies straight into my back and just very pointy bum bones. But it just kept breaking down, and then I mean I think I had it was the best part of 12 months. I was probably laying there, and I had carers come in that just chat with them, and they were all good. And I really don't know. Thinking back, it was just long days. But I mean I've always been pretty lucky, being a pretty positive person, so I was able to sort of just still. I mean, it sucked. It definitely sucked, but I don't really know how I didn't completely lose my mind.
Do you still have anxiety from it? Because you still don't.
Yeah, I've got like PTSD
where. So you don't get out of your chair in
no,
sessions.
I have a little bit of just like I know I've got a standing frame here that I can do little bits and be more just super careful with it, take my time and do all that and in my own time. But I just part of me is like I'd rather at least be up in my chair than be laying in bed even.
Then risk it.
And so especially now with that scar tissue, once it's obviously at a higher risk and things like that. Yep. But I do have plans, obviously, with the cure that we'll talk about in a sec. I'm going to have to be getting up and moving around more. So there's definitely reasons to do it, which I'm prepared for. So that's fine. But just quickly back to what you said about the different. Like spinal cord injuries or some being degenerative as well. Like that's really tough. That something I didn't think about for years till someone mentioned to me about spinal cord injuries. Once it happens, that's often the worst it's going to get, and you're all about trying to get better. And a lot of things in there are about trying to get better. But that emotional toll again of those people that are doing everything just to try to delay the degenerative effects of it, that would be a lot harder to deal with, and a different approach I imagine you have to take as well with that. Just in an emotional sense as much of as a clinical, but that would be really tough.
That's for spinal, certainly
MS.
with like preventing, like for spinal, it's trying to prevent the secondary complications. When people are fresh to a chair, all they want to do is walk again. But you ask someone that's 5 years post, and that's not top of their list anymore. It's like, bladder function, bowel function, sexual function, or just getting rid of the nerve pain or skin problems they've had, and then walking might be a second or third on the list at that point. And as Jenny said, that's just in spinal. So sometimes you're training just to stay healthy, and sneaking in whatever neurological recovery you can have. And then the other conditions like MND or MS or anything that's degenerative as nature of the condition or disease, that's also really hard because you might only get someone with MND for a couple of months. And that's, you do what you can to support them and prolong their good times as long as you can, but no matter the gold standard in the world, still might not be able to save that person.
Yeah, I think it was always easier in a sense at the start for me with after my injury I knew, all right, rehab, try to get better. That was your one focus. Didn't have to worry about work, worry about essentially anything else. I want to try to get better. And then when it does slow down or you even mentally start to get over that hump and be like, okay, this is what it is. I still want to maintain, still want to train, still enjoy it. But then it's like, okay, what's next? And the next stage of life of then figuring out how to actually go about, when I'm 29, I'm going to have, again, the cure, but otherwise I'm going to have a lot of years, in a chair. So it's that, okay, what's next? How am I going to set up my life? We'll get to those next stages, which can almost be more difficult than the initial dealing with the spinal cord injury and just trying to get better. So
I agree, because I could see that in that period, you're kind of in this bubble.
Yeah.
It's like all life has stopped, and then you slowly introduce life back in, and then all of a sudden it's, well, you still need to find your career and your purpose, but you also aren't giving up on your physical goals and what you want there. So how do you add everything in?
Yeah, it's a tricky balance to find. Yeah.
It's something we encourage though. Like, it's not good for us if someone just devotes their whole life to strides and rehab.
Yeah.
Like, as much as that doesn't make sense, like people might think that it's great for the business, but we can see what it does to someone. Like, they get to 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is, and all they've done for that period is just stop everyone around them and stop their whole life. And it doesn't make us feel good. So we actively encourage people to go and find that purpose again. And as Jenny said, it is hard. You know, you wake up and you're like, shit, what am I going to do? But like, just getting some value, getting some purpose, and being around those real people, and then eventually people accept their injury more and those around them, and they get out and start doing cool stuff again. And you can still want to walk again. You can still want to hug your loved one, but it's not your one priority as you get out of bed every morning. And there's nothing wrong with making that a second and third priority, as long as you stay as healthy as you can.
Yep. What about a positive experience in there with, I know you guys have helped people with reach heaps of milestones, whether it's ride a bike for the first time, take their first steps. As you mentioned, that guy that you saw over in America walk across the stage to get his diploma. What's some really cool experiences, or one each, that you've really hit home and really cool to be a part of?
Oh, it just, like, we have a lot of therapists. We have a lot of, like, you know, there's thousands of training hours a month that, like, there's always really cool moments. Like 2 weeks ago, Theo took completely independent steps. It's been a long grind. We put a thing on our socials about it, but, you know, a lot of individual setbacks for him, but like fully independent steps through the P-bars. This week, the girl that Jenny mentioned before, Harriet, another lucky that she's got an incomplete injury, but was struggling to find her strength in that injury and dealing with a lot of hypertonicity and stuff in her left leg. And just some little tiny nuggets in her training program that we're able to give her. You know, I was talking to her parents just before we came here, and they're like, we got to come back. So, and it can be the big moments like walking, or it can be the little moments like Wol hugging his kids. And like, that was years ago, but that still left a massive imprint on me. You know, he can hug his boys now when they're younger, and feel like as a dad he can contribute more. Like, that means as much, to be honest.
Yeah, I'll go way back through the archives. I remember it was old facility, sitting on the plinth. Ryan, which this is a plug for you too, he drank a beer, which he hated. But it was his first time at that point.
4x old. It was terrible.
Yeah, that's why.
Like drinking that. And then thank you now for having drinking buddies, so he can, and others can continue that.
But here today.
Doing God's work.
There we go. But yeah, a lot of times with that, or even a while ago, I remember I was a woman came in for an eval, and we were about to go through all of the protocol, and she said, okay, so now we need to get into prone, so just laying on your stomach. And then she started bawling her eyes out, and I was like, oh God, what did I do to this lady? Like, what's going on? And then her husband started crying too, and they said, no, she hasn't been on her stomach since her accident. And it was like something that small of just rolling over that, again, in your chair, you commonly are lying on your bum and you only have forward flexion. So how often are you actually opening up your hips and laying in prone on a daily basis, even when we tell you to?
Every time you tell me to.
Yeah, right? But yeah, it sometimes I think it can be the big moments when somebody is taking a step, getting on a bike, kicking the ball, all of those, but it's also something that is so incredibly little, which just reminds somebody that they haven't written off something as small as laying on their stomach.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have thought that. That's awesome, just to be able to have those little moments, as you said, to make such a difference to someone's life. It's something so simple.
Again, it's those little things that we would take for granted, and you just give them that little bit of normality back, or that little bit of independence, or not needing to rely on a care as much. Like, that's, it doesn't have to be independent walking. It can be anything in between.
So a question I get asked a lot is about what is actually happens in sessions in there, like what you guys get me doing. Because I remember one time I posted a photo of standing in there, and I think mum and dad were talking to someone back home. They're like, "Oh, I can see Nick can stand now." It's like, no, not really. So it is a bit not misleading, but to the eye sometimes it does look a bit different. So let's say I come in C4 quadriplegic, no restrictions. I want to work on strength, loading, cardio. What's a 2-hour session in strides look like for me?
I suppose the easiest way of answering that is every injury level, every ASIA score, every function's different, and every recovery we've seen is very different as well. So you alluded to one little good part of that. If there's no restrictions, the person doesn't have any coexisting injuries or comorbidities to say that they can't stand, for example, or skin breakdown, fractures, might be really undue spasticity or contracture in their legs. So if you rule out any medical reasons why they can't do stuff, we kind of break it down into 6 or 7 different overall exercise groups or modalities, we call them. So you got walking or gait training, and we can do it over treadmills or over ground. Standing, and I'm assuming you would have been standing in a squat rack that day, for example, Nick.
Yeah.
So we've made up these cool forearm supports so we can retrofit them onto squat racks and different things now, or tilt table standing, standing frame standing, harness. Like there's a bunch of different ways we do that one. Upper limb strength, which you've done a lot of now, mate, and your independence with your arms for your things you do it throughout your day has improved a lot.
Yep.
We can then do lower limb strength, and even for people who may not have lower limb volition, we can add stim to that, so they can do stim-assisted things, or as they're working back on their own volition, or people that may not get their own lower limb volition, we can still do stim-assisted movements to try and then focus on the hips and core, for example, in a way that we wouldn't be able to do without targeting the legs at the same time.
And so stim is electrical. What are they? Electrical pulses to contract your muscles for someone that can't contract it themselves? Is that how you explain it?
I'll let Jan go on that one, but yeah, pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much adding a little jet fuel. Stimulation when we FES, functional electrical stimulation, you're stimulating the peripheral nerves,
right,
and then you're getting that muscular response. So when somebody's on the FES bike, they're going ahead and it's stimulating the quadriceps when the legs would be extending, and then their toes point down when the gastrocs are stimmed. So everything is happening within that cyclical pattern.
Simulating as if you were doing it yourself.
Yeah, really great about using the bike, which also somebody might come over to you, similar to when you're talking about standing, and see you on the bike and see your muscles responding and say, oh, that's great, you can cycle now.
Yeah.
And then not understand that, yes, well, you are a part of that movement. There's also a motor, and there's also some other components that are assisting with that. Just as Jim said, there's no 2 injuries that are the same, which is what makes this job very rewarding, exciting, challenging. So not only are you not going to see the same presentation, I could do the exact same exercises with you in the same order 2 days in a row, and you might respond completely different, and that might have to do with sleep, tone, spasticity.
So weird when that
happens.
If you went to the pavilion the night before.
Going to the PAV. Having a good
I'm a lot
night
looser after when I'm hungover.
I'm sure you are.
Yeah.
So
It made more sense than one.
nice. So yeah, there's all of that. But when it comes down to, I guess if we could break it down to, you come to Making Strides day 1. You will have your assessment, so your initial evaluation. From there, we'll do a battery of tests. From there, the person who's taking your session that day is generally your lead trainer, and they will create the framework. So that's when you came in and you said, I want to work on A, B, C, D. So whether that was I'm working on bed mobility, or somebody else might work on sit to stand from a standard chair height. So they'll set the format for what your program will look like. Then what we see is one of the reasons to come to Making Strides is we work in a large team, and everybody comes from a world of different backgrounds, and everybody just has a different lens when they're looking at probably the same person but with that really brilliant different perspective. And so then they take that umbrella term and might view it in a completely different way. So you still have that overarching goal of wanting to load bear, but that load bear may be on your feet, on your knees, maybe seated. So at Making Strides, it's very hard to say what does the daily session look like.
Yeah, it's not a typical.
What it looks like is as atypical as possible. People come in and it looks like, people
chaos.
are hanging from bars and utter chaos.
Yeah. So much blood.
And I mean, we call our board where we're trying to coordinate who's going what where is just the absolute board of purple chaos.
Yeah.
And with that, everybody's working towards your overarching goals, but in the way that which you do it can vary dramatically.
Because each trainer, as you said, can work on the same thing, but very different outlook on things, or think of a different movement or different exercise to engage something, which keeps it interesting as well. It's not that it's boring, but it keeps it interesting. So
we get told a lot. People say, "Oh, I love that I never do the same thing twice." And while that's not necessarily a good thing, because it's like you go to a gym, a squat is a squat. A squat has purpose. You don't need to only do a squat one time and then move on to something different.
Yeah, I'm done with that. What's
yeah, exactly. What's next? I'd be happy
mastered
with
that exercise. Yeah.
I think what people mean by that is they take that same squat and they do it 36 different ways.
Yeah.
And so they enjoy that there's that variety, because unfortunately what I've learned from those with a spinal cord injury is you have to be more patient than you ever wanted to be.
Yeah.
And it's such a hindrance of just how slow things go. And
something Ryan Wiggins and I spoke about on a couple episodes ago was that, like, beforehand we both were talking about how we love the gym, and you go there and you can see not instant results, but a lot quicker. You see results. You can see muscles forming. Your weights go up a lot quicker. You get that sort of feedback to encourage you to keep going and motivate you to keep going. With a spinal cord injury, sometimes you're going for weeks and months just to see the slightest little improvement, so it can really drag out that motivation to want to keep going. But that's where I guess you just got to push through and know that it's for the bigger purpose of trying to get that small goal.
That's the part. That's the part with the neuro that keeps me so wanting more and stimulated. And with able-bodied population or even athletes, it's pretty predictable. So, but it's not with neuro. Like for yourself, you could be week, progressive overload. Sometimes we do the same exercise a few times and try and get strong in a specific movement, like shoulder flexion for you. But then the next week, for a reason that's asymptomatic and we can't exactly work it out in the clinic, you're going down by 20%.
Yeah, it's weird.
Not good, but it's all part of it. And I can say for myself, especially, a lot of what I do when it comes to working out is for mental health, and it's for my time away and just to have that hour. And whether it's always looking at that linear progress, sometimes as much as, I can say the NDIS states the word maintenance, but sometimes what we're looking for is also to rid those secondary complications that, are so commonly hand in hand with the spinal cord injury, or just to feel good, to get out and tick a box and be like, I did it.
Yeah,
I had a purpose.
Yeah, definitely. Some of those days you just couldn't be bothered doing anything, don't want to go, and always feel better after you've been. It's like anyone, you exercise, release some endorphins, and you always feel better after it. So.
Yeah, it's hard to regret it.
And getting people out of their chair is another big one for us. So to answer your question and apply the framework that we both sort of gave, the biggest thing is we don't want people to stay in their chairs all session unless there's a reason. Like it might be skin breakdown, it might be, in your case, Nick, or it might be fracture risk or bone density. But if it's clinically safe to get them out of the chair, get them out of the chair for 2 hours. And it's cool at the end of sessions. Sometimes you're like, man, where's your chair?
Yeah.
There's 5 wheelchairs in the corner, and but it's a way of people, releasing the confines of the injury for a couple of hours, and talking about the positive release of endorphins and that feel good energy. Like you can be still hitting a good workout. Your wheelchair's over there. You're feeling able, and you're doing cool things. Like it's great doing setups with Ryan Wiggins, like you mentioned, where he's strong in certain movements, and he can even move his whole body and see his whole body move against gravity in certain movements. So you just got to find those creative setups where he can actually do that. And you give him a little carrot. I remember doing an assisted upright row or inverted row, one day with him with a sling assist underneath his shoulders. And I was doing like sets of 20, 25. He went for 3 minutes straight.
Yeah.
Because he could now see his whole body move, and he was so engaged by it.
You get that feedback we're talking about. Yeah. Just removing gravity is not your friend as a quad. So removing gravity makes you realise, oh, actually I can move that, and then that gives you that feedback and that motivation to go that little bit more.
Yeah. And that's a big part of when you're saying, because I know that when you're talking about standing, so many of our other clients have felt the same way, where they say like, whether you have gravity assisting you, then all of a sudden you look that much more capable. So then everybody around you assumes that.
Yep.
And then it's almost like I can only imagine it's this weird scenario where then you almost need to feel like you're letting people down and say, oh, so sorry, that stand you saw me doing, that was actually fully supported with hip and knee support. Or I was hanging in a harness, and yes, I had 10% of my body weight touching the ground, but that doesn't mean that I can all of a sudden go for a walk with you.
Yeah, it is tricky like that, isn't it? Yeah, where, like you said, you're almost because people support you so much and excited for you, and then you're like, oh, just chill out. No, that's not actually the case. Yeah, still a quad.
Making strides aren't that good.
Yeah, they're not that good. That's my brother's favourite joke. He's like, what do you mean doing? I was like, oh, I went to making strides. He's like, you made any yet? I was like, nah. He's like, they're just taking your money, aren't they? I was like, yeah, very difficult. Yeah. And so that same sort of stuff working in the gym, that's similar to same thing that's going to be happening as part of the trial.
Yeah, absolutely. Same principles, mate. And if we can do each of those groups of exercises with everyone, we can. And the cool thing with the study, we get that individual freedom now to do it, treat every injury differently, and not have a blanket program for anyone.
Well, hopefully one day a lot of your clientele will be gone and not coming to strides.
That's maybe a good day.
Maybe come say
hi.
hi.
But make us all redundant. Yeah. That's our goal.
So being part of the upcoming trial and the trial happening now, the way I try to explain it to people is like, because essentially there's nothing wrong with my body. It's just a little spot of my spinal cord stops the message getting from my brain.
That's a good description.
Down, down to fire off the nerves. The message tries to get from my brain to the nerves to tell my legs to move, but it hits the injury site. So what they do is they take your nasal cells, do sciencey stuff to them, create a little bridge and implant it on your spinal cord so that it essentially creates a bridge across that gap where it's injured, and your brain can send messages across your spinal cord, bridge that gap and get down to your legs. So that's the surgery side of it. And then the participants for the trial, which hopefully start any time now in the next few months this year, whenever it is, will be coming into making strides, and you guys will play a big part in the physical rehab. How much does that excite you?
Oh, so much. So yeah, as Jim said, I mean, this has been a long time coming, but to be the rehab partner for this trial definitely it means everything to us. It will mean that people will be coming to us for about a year, and they will be doing probably up to daily sessions for 3 hours a day. So it's a huge commitment, time commitment when you're talking about life and jobs and everything else. I mean, people are going to have to think of what do they do with their kids and relocating. So it's a big commitment on all levels. But the idea is that people are making this commitment to themselves, and the rehab will be quite challenging with that. So I feel like even if you're in the control group, you get a year of daily training. So how fit are you going to be? And then from there, they've also changed it. So instead of using the word cure, we're talking about trying to have any kind of response that's favorable. So it doesn't mean that as much as we'd like to say it all gives legs and everybody just walks off happy days, we're trying to look for what improvements can be had, because this is the very first of this size human trial led with the nerve bridge that you were just explaining.
Yeah. I mean, as a quad, any improvement's massive. Like, if I can regain a bit more arm function and do a few more tasks myself with that, if that's what it is, or bowel bladder function, whatever it might be, like any sort of improvement is huge. So, I mean, hopefully we all get up and walk out and never have to see you again.
Yeah.
Sick of the dad jokes.
But yeah, no, it's massive. And I should say the control group we're talking about is some people will get the surgery, some won't get the actual nasal cells implanted on them, so that they just get the rehab, so you can kind of measure the difference that the nasal cells make to someone that does or doesn't get it. But
and the cool part on that, we're only talking to James and John via email this morning about that specific thing. It's not just your old layman's terms complete injuries or really catastrophic injuries. Which is Asia A and B. It's also Asia C now. So your incompletes that might be able to move quite a bit, but just can't load bear against gravity and can't walk yet. They're also going to be included in it. So certainly those guys may see some great results from 12 months of rehab as well. Looking at the MRIs, doing this whole suite of testing that Gold Coast University Hospital will be doing, and just being part of that is cool. We know hundreds of people now, if not a few thousand, with like the extended network of people in wheelchairs. So they might be all walking or they might be just hugging their loved ones or whatever that looks like. It's just being a small part in that is cool.
I think the biggest barrier is just that we're talking about that number. And although that number isn't as large as you want it to be, for many reasons, funding specific, but we know that when you're saying hundreds, I mean, we do know hundreds of people that are wanting to be a part of this.
Yeah.
And each of those people are saying, okay, well, I will defer uni. I won't travel. I won't do this. I won't do that. And it's like everybody's wanting so much to be a part of this. So we're hoping that once this does get off the ground, then it just feeds for what subjects, or I mean, what studies come following. So this is obviously the first of, and the goal there is once it comes to commercialization, then there's a lot more options. So we just feel like we're ready.
So wild. It's at Griffith on the Gold Coast too, and Gold Coast University Hospital.
And,
yeah, it's very convenient, isn't it?
Foundation's
So
here as well.
convenient.
Yeah,
It's like
Perry Cross. Yep, Foundation.
super
It's
lucky.
yeah. It's I've told heaps of people about it, and people living on the Gold Coast that don't know about it and things. So it's wild. It's literally in the backyard, and very very exciting. So all positive signs, and keep you updated. But if someone was a physio EP thinking about working in somewhere like Strides or in a neuro centre, what advice would you have for them?
Don't do it. No, no, definitely do it.
Yeah.
I think for anybody, especially within the neurospace, but it's probably for any space, is just listen as much as you can, be inquisitive, never feel like your experience is going to trump what you're going to learn, and just know that your clients know best. So do your research, but always listen to the person that's in front of you because they're the expert on their bodies.
Well said, mate. Yeah, it's one of those ones that the longer I spend in it, the more I realise I don't know. And that for me is the enticing part. Like that's what I was getting less and less excited about sport. Like you can do really accurate periodization charts annually or even over 2 years, and that took all the spice out of it. So it's a really neurological rehab, and all the conditions are a very fast evolving thing at the moment, and it's super complex. It's always different and challenging, and just got to keep an open mind and being comfortable with knowing that you're never going to fully understand it all, but that always that intellectual challenge and certainly the satisfaction of helping others is much cooler for me anyway than working with a pro team or you know, like that's where the spice is, and that's why I just keep coming back.
Staying curious and what about someone that might have just had an injury and I mean, there's so many questions I could ask, but it's just advice, I guess, in general advice to someone that might have just had an injury or just coming out of hospital or whatever it might be with a spinal cord injury or with a neurological condition.
I feel like we get asked this quite a bit, and I think when people ask it, they're almost coming from clients, not yourself, but they're almost looking for, okay, should I get on that FES more? Should somebody massage my feet? Should we do this? And I just think sometimes people just need to realize it's a long road ahead. As you said earlier, lean on your supports, and as much as you don't want to in those early days, patience. You're going to have to, there's nothing you can do to expedite the process. And also in the early days, everybody wants to research of where do I go? How do I find a cure? How do I do this? And it's the really, really shitty part of a spinal cord injury is there's not that one answer. And sometimes it's about trial and error, a myriad of different options, and also just trusting where you're at, because while you're in that inpatient phase, it's tough. So do your physio, and just hopefully you have some good resources with your family, and also if you're in Australia, get on the NDIS.
Yeah, and get to Strides.
It's like it's easy to say. Like we've had a lot of phone calls and even meetings with people in all the different spinal units when they're an inpatient, and it's like this. The hospitals actually do a great job, and they need to get this person medically stable. That has to be the priority. And you need to get stable. You need to learn your body again. You need to get ready for life outside the hospital. So trying to overlay that with Googling stem cells or Googling stim units or how often should I be stretching or all the stuff that Jenny mentioned, that stuff is important, but it should be way down the list when you're in an inpatient. Like you get your body healthy, get your support around you, get on the NDIS before you get out. Home mods if they need to be done. Like that really needs to be the number one thing. If you rush out of the hospitals and those things aren't lined up, it makes that first 6 months, which was always going to be pretty crap, but it makes it way more crap. So set yourself up for success before you leave, and know that, like you said before, you can still enjoy life while you're living with this condition.
Yep.
So you can still focus on it for 1 hour a day, but after that 1 hour, stop and go and do something that's not just hyper focused on rehab and your body and Googling, and because you need to set a time limit that I'm only going to allow this much dedication per day, but it's not healthy to spend 8-9 hours a day either doing rehab or like focusing on it, or, you know, talking it. That's not a healthy hobby by any standards.
Yep.
So
what do you recommend?
I guess just trial and error, I think, was massive for me. Of just, I'd asked for a lot of advice and got a lot of advice and learned along the way, but I think the main things I learnt was just by trying things, and things would work or they wouldn't. Just finding that balance as well, like, as you guys mentioned, is super important, but just figuring out what works for you and listening to your body. And someone might give you advice of saying, this is what I do to work, and you might try it and it doesn't. And that's I tried that. That's not what works for me.
take it off the list.
Yep. Yeah. So trial and error and figuring out what works best for you, and really listening to your body, and you know what's best for you is the biggest bit of advice I'd have, I reckon.
Yeah.
It's hard to not get caught up in all the social stuff though, but like you're an example, mate, that we give to a lot of other people. Like you're back into dating, back into a couple of businesses, you got products, you know, you got your celebrant thing as well. Like you're so short a period really post injury, you've achieved so much. Like a lot of guys fresh out of the hospital, like, oh, Dempsey's killing it, eh? So whatever spice or whatever metric you've applied to trial and error, then, you know, you're hearing it here, guys. That's literally all you need to do. Like just
be Nick.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I think I just get bored too quick and just want to start something. Probably have ADHD.
And from somebody who did a year of bed rest.
Making up for lost time.
But just don't take it too personally if it didn't work out, whatever that is. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, I'm not going to be a SEAL trainer or something.
No, I've definitely tried lots of things that haven't worked out, so that's why. But trial and error. It's my best friend, my old man, gets into me. I dropped out of uni twice and didn't finish. He reckons I didn't finish my apprenticeship, and I recken that's a fair excuse when you break.
He just didn't want to sign you off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I just really committed to the bit to not have to finish that and breaking my neck. But no, I think there's so many good lessons in there, good bits of advice to take out of that chat, and so many more exciting things to come with Strides with you guys or with the Cure. And thanks for coming on and having a chat. It wasn't so bad after all, was it?
Nah.
Thanks, Nick.
We'll have to reschedule a few times before we do the next one.
Yeah,
right?
sounds good.
You think we're getting called back for a part two?
Yeah, sorry. It was nice.
Wishful thinking.
No, awesome. Thanks for that, guys. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Next up on the podcast, I'll be chatting with Professor James St. John, who is the director at the Clem Jones Neuro Research Centre and is the lead researcher in the trial to find a cure for the spinal cord injury. So, as we were just discussing then, Jim, Genny and I about the trial, I'll be delving into a lot more detail with him about all the scientific side of it with the nasal olfactory cells, and then also a bit of the physical therapy side of things. So that episode will be coming up next, but if you check out the social media pages, you'll be able to keep track of when it's coming and listen to that one. I'm looking forward to it. Also, just a quick note to mention that Making Strides are hiring at the moment, so if you are a physiotherapist or an exercise physiologist that's interested in working with this clientele in the neurological space, then reach out to them and become part of the Purple family. If this episode or any of my episodes do bring up any adverse feelings for yourself, please contact Lifeline for support on 13 11 14. You can also send them a text message on 0477 13 11 14, or go to lifeline.org.au and navigate towards the live chat. Remember to reach out and check in on each other, and that it ain't weak to speak. Also, don't forget to go check out the Instagram page at chatsfromachair_podcast, or the Facebook page at Chats from a Chair Podcast, and let me know who you think I should have on and have a chat with, and also check out all of my past guests where you can catch up on episodes you might have missed. But that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this chat as much as I did. Cheers.